Welcome to this installment of the Consultants Training Institute's Emerging Leaders series. I am Brian Jones. This installment will feature a conversation with Lari Masten. Lari is an MSA, CPA, ABV, CFF, and CVA with the firm Masten Valuation headquartered in Denver, Colorado. Lari dedicates her professional time to business valuations, damage calculations, and consulting services that relate to a variety of publicly and privately held businesses. Lari has been qualified as an expert witness in matters of marital dissolution, partner disputes, shareholder disputes, bankruptcy, and economic damage calculations. She has also performed business valuations, lost profits analysis, and goodwill impairment testing for a variety of industries, including life sciences, the exploration and production of natural resources, agriculture, and real estate. Lari is a past chairman of NACVA's Executive Advisory Board, currently serving as the chairman for NACVA's Quality Assurance Board, and has been a lead instructor for several years in the Business Valuation Certification and Training Center, Forensic Accounting Academy, and Cornerstones of Financial Forensics. Please enjoy this installment of the Emerging Leaders series, featuring this conversation with the emerging leader, Lari Masten. I am honored and pleased to be able to sit down and talk with you a little bit about this series that we're launching, Emerging Leaders Within the Profession. To categorize you as emerging really isn't fair because you've been involved for quite a long time. But this is a good opportunity for people to get to know you a little bit and understand why you're so passionate about this profession and some of the things you've done. So tell us, first of all, we're fellow Texans.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, tell us about where you grew up and where you went to school and how you got into this industry, accounting.
Well, I grew up in a small town. Actually, I grew up on a farm close to a small town named New Deal, Texas, and that's right outside of Lubbock, West Texas area. Went to a very small school, graduating class of 25 people. I think 25 of us walked across the stage, maybe only 20 actually graduated.
What school's that?
New Deal High School.
Okay.
And my parents are both professors at Texas Tech University. And so I went to Texas Tech University, not because there's any discounts, there were no discounts,
right.
But it was just, you're going to be
right
a Red
there.
Raider.
Yeah.
And, you know, that part of West Texas, you know, that whole panhandle is just an incredible breeding ground for support. And going through college there, you know, I was very, you know, complacent, basically. I wanted to stay there. You know, I didn't know anything different, you know, big city, small city. I thought Lubbock was a big city because New Deal had 600 people in it. And the way I got into the profession was really interesting. My undergraduate was not in accounting, and my mom had this friend named Elaine McNair who was a CPA. She's one of the only CPAs in town that had her own practice.
Okay.
And I went to work for her with no accounting background and decided that, you know, she was just so graceful and so confident, and just, I looked at her and she was my role model and she didn't even know it. So I worked for her, kind of learned the ranks of the CPA world, went back to school, got a master's degree, got my CPA license, and went to work for a larger firm in Lubbock that was PricewaterhouseCoopers prior to the acquisition, and they became a regional firm. Anyway, at that firm, I really got a different perspective on the accounting profession. Okay. And at the small firm, we did everything. You did bookkeeping, you did tax, you did audit, you did, you know, answer the phones, whatever you needed. You cleaned. I was actually a janitor at one point, so you did everything. And then in that larger firm environment, I kind of got, you know, pegged into audit because my master's was Master of Science in Accounting, so I knew all the audit side. And after about 6 or 8 months, I decided, you know, auditing is not really what I want to do. And one of the tax partners pulled me over on the tax side. And not long after that, he tossed a business valuation report in front of me, and he said, read this. It was during busy season. He said, read this, and, you know, when you come back tomorrow, let me know what you think. So I read it, not even knowing what a business valuation report was. Came back the next day. He sits down. He goes, "So, Miss newly minted Master of Science in Accounting, what did you think about that report?" And I said, it was interesting. I thought it was great, but the economic section didn't really tie to the industry, and kind of had all these comments. And he immediately said, "I'll be back." And I thought, okay, this is a bigger firm. I haven't been here that long. I need to start cleaning out my desk and leave. Long story short, he said, "You're going to learn this stuff. You have a knack for this. You understand it, and I'm going to send you off to BV school." And I didn't go immediately. I learned under him. He was a great mentor for me. And I decided very quickly that this is the world I wanted to be in, not in the traditional tax and accounting.
What kind of case was it? Do you remember?
It was a family limited partnership case. Okay. It was a holding company. And I have to say, to my chagrin back then, I didn't understand a lot of the nuances, so we were still using the black-green build-up method.
Oh,
and
nice.
Some things that, I kind of look back at those reports we first issued, and I'm like, I'm glad that was a long time ago. Right. Statute of limitations has passed.
Well, and that's a good way to maybe ask this next question, because the organization celebrating 20 years NACVA is this year, founded by Parnell Black and Bob Green. And in the mid-90s, there were not as many resources then as there are now, and the profession has really moved forward quickly. What would you recommend to people who are coming into the profession that are critical things that they should kind of grasp their hands around after they go through the credentialing and get the training and do their case studies? What would you say is an important thing for them to focus on shortly thereafter?
I honestly think, rather than, obviously there's the tactical issues and knowing what the tools are in your toolbox, that you can use from the standpoint of the resources that are out there. But I actually think with the way our profession is moving, that lean towards one either specialty type of business or specialty area. So within what we do, there's the litigation side and there's the business valuation side and there's some other consulting pieces. But pick what you like, but I think really an industry focus is something that if I were today starting out, that's what I would do. I would master an industry sector, and I would just market myself to that industry sector. And some people may disagree with that, saying that that's a little risky. But I think that our profession is broadening so much, and we have so many new people coming in, that to be a generalist, even in business valuation, is probably, you're not doing the best service you can to the client. If you do 1 or 2 or 3 of that type of engagement per year, maybe specializing in one thing a lot. For multiple reasons. One, you'll be really good. You're always going to be confident. You know what you're doing.
And then people look to you as the expert.
The expert in that area. Plus, it's efficiencies. I mean, it is a cutthroat environment out there as far as bidding. I mean, the economy is bad. It's better. Right. It's not as bad as it has been. But clients are much more price sensitive. And I think if you can be very efficient at one sector or one specialty area, then you can provide the top-notch service that your client needs. I'm not saying cutting your prices, but you can do it more efficiently so that from a practice standpoint, time-wise, it doesn't cost as much.
So what are some areas that you specialize?
I specialize in natural resources. I do oil and gas quite a bit, healthcare. And again, this is what I would tell myself if I could go back in time and say, do this. I would whisper that in my ear. I am guilty of being a generalist, and as a sole practitioner, I often have the immediate reaction of, oh yes, I can do that. But what I'm fortunate enough to have had, and part of that is through this organization, is I've over the years created a good network of my peers across the United States that I know what their specialty areas are. So if I get approached for an engagement, and maybe it's something that I haven't worked in before, I have the option, because of the networking that I've been able to do through this organization, to take it on and then have someone guide me through the process or the ins and outs or the areas to watch out for, or even contract with them and help jointly produce the product that's necessary.
So healthcare is one of the biggest issues right now in the United States. What are some of the areas or current issues that valuation appraisers or analysts that are going to work in that area should be aware of?
There's a lot of regulatory compliance, far beyond what we see in IRA, other compliance type work like dealing with the IRS and the Department of Labor. The standard of value is completely different in healthcare when it's relating to anti-kickback statutes and the regulatory guidelines that force basically the fair market value opinion when you have a hospital physician relationship and referral potential relationships. And within that, I think that one of the struggles really in that whole valuation niche area is sources of data, and where do you get the sources of data? Within, you know, 'cause you have evaluation issues, you have physician acquisition, you know, practice acquisition issues, and then you have just relationships that the physicians have with the hospital. When a hospital wants to hire a physician as an employee, there's a fair market value opinion that needs to be issued to determine that that arrangement is within the healthcare stark definition of fair market value.
You've been credentialed for about how long?
12 or 13 years.
So you've been able to get your foundation, work hard at establishing your reputation in your career. There are a lot of people that are just getting started, possibly. And what would be your, what were some of the things that challenged you initially, especially being a sole practitioner when you came out of working in that CPA practice? What were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome, and some advice that you would give to other people that are like you, just getting started?
Just getting started. Well, and especially just getting started with some level of experience, but not a total confidence behind me. Some of the obstacles I ran into were, you know, how do you get the clients, bigger issues, non-recurring clients. You know, every engagement, if you do your job right, typically you're not going to have a repeat client. And getting across to the client that I knew what I was talking about. I mean, the two things really were getting them in the door and then getting them to sign off on the engagement letter. You know, and that's what I didn't care what kind of business it was or what the industry was. I just wanted the work. And so what I did, and my advice is to get involved. I moved from Texas to Colorado, and so I had two challenges. I had one, you know, newbie, you know, fairly, you know, relatively, and two, new environment. And so I reached out immediately to the state chapter president, the NACVA state chapter president, and said, hey, I'm new in town. Do you have meetings? Because where I came from in that part of Texas, we weren't having meetings. And he immediately invited me. It was like 2 weeks after that they were having their meeting that fall. And he said, why don't you come and present? And I'd never presented before. At that point in time, I'd never spoken in front of my peers, and I was completely, you know, thrown off kilter. And so I picked a topic and I spoke about it, and it went off well. And from then on, for like the next 10 years, a meeting didn't go by that I didn't present at. At the state chapter level. And that really helped. In a lot of ways, it helped me gain confidence in front of other people, explaining what I do. It helped my peers understand my strengths and weaknesses, and they understood what they could refer to me. And it helped me get to know my peers. If I had just gone to those meetings and sat in the back of the room and, you know, not paid it, you know, not really gotten engrossed in it, then I would have really missed a huge opportunity. And from that led to, I then wanted to be more involved on the national level and get on a board. And because I had reached out and was well known at the state chapter level, I was voted onto a board, and that was the credentialing board at the time. And I've kind of, you know, gone from, you know, that board to the executive advisory board.
And have been very involved in teaching in a number of programs, the valuation, credentialing for the AVA and the CVA. And chairing conferences and
writing
committees
articles.
And writing articles,
Joining the committees, yes.
Yeah, that's one of the things that a lot of folks have said throughout these conversations is really to get involved and build your networks. There are so many opportunities, and you know this, for members to get involved, whether it's reviewing some questions, writing some articles, getting on a committee, and the organization of NACVA and IVA both really want to foster that involvement.
Yes. And you can do all of it, or you can do one or two.
Right.
And it's really about doing the work. It's not about volunteering, although that's how you get there. But you learn so much through the process. I learned so much about the workings of the organization, and not just what can I do for the organization, but how the organization helps me in turn. And it's not a this for that type of relationship, but it's just amazing the intangible value that I've gotten from my membership from this organization.
You've recently taken on a huge project by working with the headquarters office to establish professional errors and omissions report for the insurance for the industry. Talk to us about why that was important.
That was important back to, what I was going through, just my evolution in practice. And from a practice management standpoint, I started several years ago. I wasn't, went from a big firm to a sole practitioner. Now what do? You have to get professional liability insurance. And what I found was there were not many carriers that understood what business valuation was, period. They would hear the word valuation or appraisal and then automatically, funnel those clientele into a certain area. Now me, different, because I'm a CPA, I was getting an accountant's policy. And I thought, well, I'm a CPA, but I'm not an accountant. Why are they doing that? I'm a valuation professional. And so it puzzled me why there was no product out there for valuation professionals. And so I started from the ground up, basically trying to figure out why the industry didn't recognize us as a separate professional group. They have lawyers, they have doctors, they have CPAs. We're valuation professionals, not just consultants. So that started it. I went to Parnell and I said, look, there's an opportunity, there's a need here. There's a lot of professionals that are members that are going without insurance because there's no product for them. Let's see what we can do to educate the insurance companies and the carriers and the underwriters on what we do, what this organization stands for, and try to get a program for us.
And we did.
And we did.
Yep, it's launched, making a lot of progress and making it more aware to our membership that we have that available, but a huge initiative. You've been involved as an executive advisory board chair, the first woman in our industry, or at least within the organization, to have that position, and have recently been elected back.
Yes.
You're a glutton for punishment.
I am. And I'm very honored to be back on that board. That board, from a strategic standpoint, really has some unique opportunities to make an impact. And the insurance program piece wasn't a direct result of me being on that board, but it allowed Parnell to see me in a different light and get to know me.
Right.
So when I came to him and said, I think this is something that we need to look at, he listened and he agreed with that and supported it.
So I also understand, or I know from just knowing you over the years, you love fly fishing.
I love salmon on the end of a hook. Yes, I do.
And Alaska's a cool place.
Yes, it is.
Every summer.
Every summer with my dad and brothers and a couple of my dad's friends, and we go to Ketchikan. We go on these great trips, and it is hardcore, no frills. I'm the only girl that goes. We stay on a boat the whole time. There's no fancy dining. You eat what you catch, but it's just so much fun. It's so relaxing and so much of a reset portion of my year compared to what I do on a normal basis.
So is this something that your family has had as a historical thing for many years, or how did that whole annual kind of get together start?
Well, my dad, it used to be just my dad and his buddies, and that started maybe 20 years ago. And maybe 15 years ago, I said, well, you guys always have these great stories about going off to Alaska, and you have these great trips. And I said, what's wrong with maybe a couple of us kids palling along? And my dad said, great, that's a great idea. And so at Christmas, one of my brothers we all got a little box, and one of my brothers got the magic chit in his box. It was like a chit that said, okay, you're the one that gets to go with Dad. So it has started out with one brother got to go with my dad, on the trips. And then the next year, a different brother got to go. The next year, a different brother got to go. The next year, there's 3 brothers and 1 daughter, 4 kids. I'm thinking, okay,
my turn.
I open my box. I have nothing in my box. I'm like, hey, this is not right. I can fish, I can
Right.
do this. And so I gave them a little bit of a hard time. Now, anybody who wants to go and can pay their own way gets to go.
Yeah, Alaska's a beautiful.
It's
place.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It is so much fun. And really it's interesting just from a family dynamic because we're all, grown adults living in different states. And we got away from knowing who we were as people. We knew each other as kids. We'd get together at Christmas, kind of sit and stare at each other. But these trips are just so interesting because I get to know these people that are my family as really cool people, not just my family.
Right.
So I really
That's
love
great.
it.
You sound like a very close family.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. Well, Lari, again, it's a pleasure working with you, continuing to work with you, and it's kind of becoming apparent as I've had these conversations that the individuals that we're featuring in this series are really the folks out there helping to propel this industry forward, leading off from the folks like Hitchner and Mard and Pratt and Grabowski and continuing the legacy of contribution but also excellence, and we appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.